So for our step-up variations, there's a lot of ground to cover. We're going to go over low box and 90-degree box step-ups and also variations of each. Starting with a low box step-up, a contralateral load, which means you're going to have your dumbbell in the hand opposite to the foot that's on the box. You are going to lift your foot up and press into the box. Once you've pressed into the box, that is the cue to immediately come up into the step up. So most of your weight is in that front foot. You're not using a lot of your back foot to push you up into that step up position. I see a lot of this lifting, pressing, and then a step up where you're really pushing off of the back leg. And that's not what we want. You want to be able to get into your position, lift up, and right when you press that foot into the box, you are stepping up. When you come down, for every single step-up variation, you want to come down slow and controlled. This can be really hard for people, so oftentimes how I cue it whenever you step up into that low box is slightly leaning that torso forward as you drive your knee over your toe to come down, because what happens is as your center of mass goes backwards to come down from the step up, you want to shift your torso forwards a little bit so that you have more control in that descent, so your center of mass isn't totally off and you come off that box really quickly. When you're setting up that low box step up, you want to make sure that your foot is flexed and also toe is reasonably straight. I'll see a lot of limp foot or toe pointing a weird direction. You want to make sure your toes are reasonably straight and the foot is flexed, knees bent about 90 degrees, stance leg is straight. Right when that foot hits the pad, I'm stepping up, coming down slow and controlled. This is a low box step-up variation, so some people will use a low box. You can also use two bumper plates stacked on top of the other. The point is it's not supposed to be a super high step-up. You shouldn't have your knee at 90 degrees or higher. You shouldn't be stepping your foot up crazy high. So this, even for me, is a little bit borderline, not a low box step-up, but you can also use, again, two bumper plates if you're short like me to set up for the low box step-up. The other variation of low box step-up is bilateral load. So you're going to have your dumbbells in both hands. And the variation for bilateral is very similar to contralaterally loaded step-ups for the low box. Flexing that foot, toe is straight, knee is bent. I lift my foot up off of the box, I let it hover, and then immediately when I press into that box, I step up. Lifting that foot, immediately when my foot touches the pad, I step up. Another big thing, same cue, is when you come down, because that center of mass is shifting backwards as you descend and bend the foot to come down. Most of my weight, again, is on that foot that's on the box. My torso is leaning forward a little bit to offset that center of mass so I can come down nice and controlled and I'm not falling down off the box. Lift the foot, pressing, coming down slow and controlled. Same for the other side. You're lifting that foot, foot's flexed, pressing, coming down slow and controlled. Same even for the barbell low box step up. The only thing that can be tough is actually the unracking portion of the barbell low box step up, because you have to set it up a little bit wonky. The bar is up in the cage or on the rack. What you will have to do usually is unrack and then kind of back step your way out in front of the box. You can also rack it backwards and step up that way, but I just cattywampus my way because usually the load is not so heavy that you need to be very, very careful when it comes to unracking. The energy expended to unrack isn't going to ruin your set. Same thing, you're here. You don't want to flare the chest too far back. You still want to have elbows in and chest is braced, or core is braced. Chest is not flaring. Same as every other low box step up variation. The stance leg is straight, foot is on the pad, the plates, the box, whatever. You're going to flex that foot, lift it, let it hover off of the pad, and press in. Make sure that that foot is flexed. Make sure that those toes are straight, they're not pointed out or in, and really make sure that you have your setup right. You don't want to be on a box that's too high, or else it's going to mess up this step up variation. It's going to be really hard for you to explode into the pad and step up. So flexing the foot, stance leg is straight. Right when I push into the pad, I'm stepping up primarily with this foot. I'm not using my back foot to help me very much. Step up, push in, come down slow and controlled, same on the other side. Foot is flexed, hovers over the pad, knees bent, toe is straight, I push in, boom. And then when you come down to control that descent, chest comes forward just a little bit as those hips go backwards, right? As center of mass goes backwards, I need something to offset that center of mass moving backwards, so my chest leans forward just a little bit. And that is the low box variation. For the 90-degree box step-up variation, you can either find a box, stack up some plates, find any surface that's going to have that knee bent at about 90 degrees. It can be a little bit less than 90 degrees. It can be slightly higher, but you want it to not be super high, or else you're not going to be able to elicit the benefits we want from the movement. You don't want to be up here. It's just going to be too hard to push into and up with that lead leg. So when you are ready to step up, the first variation is a contralaterally loaded variation, step up variation. You can use a PVC pipe if you need to help hold on. You can hold on to something if you need, totally fine, or you can be just holding contralateral. Remember, a contralateral load is going to be opposite to the foot that's on the pad. When you step up, this foot is going to hang out on this pad the entire time. So leaning into the position. A lot of the time I see people try and step up from here. You need to be able to lean into the position to put more weight on this foot and take weight off of this stance leg here. You're leaning into the push leg. I'm stepping up, controlled. I fully get my position. I'm in a good standing position. I'm not off balance. And then as I come down, really important, knee is driving over to the toe, hips are going back, and my chest is falling forward as a consequence of me stepping down, of those hips going into a hinge position, stepping down. If I don't have my chest coming forward when I come down, this is what happens. I lose all control of the descent, I lose all control of the eccentric. So contralateral load, holding position. I'm moving forward, pushing my weight into this push leg here. I'm driving up, I'm fully standing, and I'm coming down slow, controlled. My chest leans forward as a result of those hips coming back. It's the same thing when you're doing a bilaterally loaded 90-degree box step up. The position is the same. That foot is hanging out on the pad the entire time. You want to really lean into that push leg so the stance leg is not doing a lot of work. My chest comes forward a little bit, knee goes over toe. I'm pushing. I fully stand. And then I come down slow, controlled. As my hips go back and my knee glides over that toe a little bit, my chest falls forward so that I control the eccentric. It's same for the other foot. That push leg, lean into it a little bit. You don't want to be fully knee over toe so that you rock into your toe. You don't want to rock into your toe. You want to have whole foot pressure the entire time. So I'm maintaining pressure throughout the entire foot, leaning into, stepping up, making sure I get my bearings once I'm stepped up. And then as I go down, the hip goes back, knee goes over toe a little bit, my chest comes forward so that that eccentric slows down. The other variation of a 90-degree box step up is going to be a barbell variation. With the barbell variation, it can be a little bit challenging. The unracked position is a little bit weird, so depending on how you have it set up, you can either come out of the rack backwards, where the rack is set up here. You come out of the rack backwards and you step up from there, or you can have the rack here. What I do is I will back up and I will kind of cattywampus my way around to get in front of the box. And then I'll cattywampus my way back into. It just depends on how much you're loading with. Most of the time, my clients, people doing this movement aren't loading so heavy that they expend so much energy unracking that the the walk around. It doesn't mess them up too bad. But regardless, I have my bar for the 90-degree box step up. Let's say I've unracked. I've moved myself all the way around. I'm in front of my box now, my platform, whatever it is, it's 90 degrees. Make sure it's 90 degrees. It can be slightly less than 90 degrees, but again, you don't want to be way up here or else we're not going to get what we want out of the movement. And that push leg, all of your weight goes into the push leg. You do not want to drive too much into the toe. You still want whole foot pressure, so do not lose whole foot pressure in your foot. Leaning forward, stepping all the way up. Once I've stepped up, get my bearings straight, I'm fully standing, and then coming down, making sure that when you come down, the knee starts traveling over the toe, your hips start hinging backwards. My chest also leans forward a little bit so that I do not fall back, because what happens is if that center of mass goes backwards, my hips go backwards, and my chest does not make up for it by moving forward, I have no control over the descent. So all of my weight going into my foot, whole foot pressure, leaning, stepping up. I come down, leaning forward, slow, controlled, eccentric. Same on the other side. Most of my weight is in this push foot. I'm keeping whole foot pressure, coming all the way up in a fully standing position. And then my hips are hinged. My chest leans forward a little bit so that I can offset that center of mass moving backwards. And that is a 90-degree box step up. Those are a lot of the step up variations that I use. I hope you find them helpful.